Director of the Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center at the Consulate General of India in Durban, Dr. Chaitanya Prakash Yogi, Ms. Rupanjali Baruah, Dr. Mini Gill, Ms. Paramita Sharma, Mr. Sipiwe Mchunu, Mr. Piyush Khandelwal, distinguished guests, online viewers, namaskar and welcome to episode 11 of Pustakalok, Light of a Book. It is a discussion on the book The Road Alone by author Ms. Rupanjali Baruah. Indeed, to commence today's program, I would like to invite author Ms. Rupanjali Baruah to speak on the book The Road Alone. Namaste and welcome, ma'am. Just a brief background about Ms. Rupanjali Baruah. Ma'am is a published author, poet, abstract artist, art critic, translator, editor, and publisher at the Worldsmith Publishers based in Guwahati, Assam, India. She has, to her credit, 5 published books, respectively of English poetry, English short fictions, English novella, English translations of Assamese short fictions, and English novels. Currently, she edits and publishes books and journals on art, literature, and culture under the publishing house. She is an editor of Shabd, an international journal of art and literature, which contributes from authors, artists, illustrators from India and abroad. As an art critic, her book on 20 artists and sculptures of Assam is getting published under the Lalit Kala Academy in New Delhi this year. As a self-taught artist, she has held several solo groups of art shows in Assam. Namaste and welcome today on episode 11 of Pustakalok, Ms. Rupanjali Baruah.
A warm welcome to all of you. And I feel truly honored that I'm getting this privilege to speak on my novel, The Road Alone. And I'm thankful to Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center at the Consulate General of India, Durban, South Africa, for giving me this opportunity. And also my gratitude goes out especially to the director, Chaitanya ji, and for giving me this opportunity. And also my sincere thank you goes to all the speakers today and my online viewers. And initially, I guess, can I just introduce myself regarding my background, a brief background on my journey as a writer. I became a writer and an artist by accident. I call it an accident because it was a traumatic experience in 1994 that changed the course of my life. And I lost my child, and since then, life has been very difficult, but I am blessed with my son and my daughter-in-law and my family. But I must say his departure left me with 2 gifts, words and color. And every time I write, I paint, I know that he's giving me this gift. So I guess that is how I began my journey as a writer. I never thought that I'll be a writer or an artist, but since 1994, I started my career as a writer and also as an artist. So now coming back to my novel, the genesis of this storyline happened long time ago. It's not that it happened overnight. A writer doesn't happen overnight, I believe. And there are so many accumulation of thoughts and ideas that come to us. And as a part of Assam and our particular psychology and the upheaval that we faced in the 1980s, so that becomes the crux of this novel. So I have selected certain episodes which were so disturbing for the people of Assam, that we lost a lot of youths and they were led astray in search of freedom. That freedom is truly false and elusive. But these young boys left their home, the sanctity of their home, the security of their family life, and they went off suddenly into the wild jungles and to pick up a different kind of life. And it turned out to be a very, very extreme kind of life. And we read these newspaper reports, and that gave me the idea that I think as a person from Assam. I owe it to the people of Assam to know the real story. And those were harrowing experiences. And I feel so amazed that, that these boys, how could they take that route? And they took it and they never came back. That is the saddest thing. The mothers are still waiting for the sons to come back home. So this story picks up the story of Ajay. He's my protagonist. And though his name is invincible, Ajay means the one who is invincible in spirit. But his spirit was tried to be crushed while he was in those camps and in those wild areas. And I see that, why does it happen? Why does it need to happen? Why do we have to lose these young boys? And so this question kept on troubling me a lot. And so thankfully, I had a few access to the lives in those wild camps. So I wrote on that. And I guess this is a journey I don't want any of our youth to take up again. This is something, my book, I hope it gives a lesson to the new generation that don't take a wild route, a shortcut to freedom. But this is not freedom, because this is where your will is crushed. You don't exist as an individual. So they never come back, and the mothers are still waiting for them. So at the end of the story, I see this novel as a kind of a catharsis for me. I mean, I feel a lot of relief in writing this, because the readers, I hope they understand what I mean to convey. That my sadness at losing someone very dear, which is very true to me. At the same time, I see these young boys also vanishing. So that's how. And once you read the storyline, I guess you will understand why there is a kind of hope for me. I see that all these wrongdoers, the perpetrators, they were brought to justice. There is poetic justice at the end of the novel. So that is a saving grace for me. At least as a writer, I am unable to finish the life of these perpetrators, but I can finish with my pen. I believe that. I think that is the strength of a pen. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Rupanjai Baruah, for those introductory remarks on the book, The Road Alone. Our next guest speaker, also joining us from India, is Dr. Mini Gill. And Dr. Mini Gill is an assistant professor at the Sri Aurobindo College, University of Delhi, India. Namaste and welcome, ma'am.
Am I audible now? So, thank you so much for inviting me on this prestigious platform and specifically for this book, Rupanjai's book, whose literature almost I have read her entire literature. And particularly this book, it's my pleasure to talk about this book. I have read this book 1.5 years ago. And before I start speaking on her book, I want to thank Swami Vivekanand Cultural Center at Consulate General of India, Durban, South Africa, Dr. Yogi, and all others members who are present here, and viewers, and Rupanjali ji. I have this book with me, The Road Alone. I'm happy to hold this book in my hands. And I really the book really attracted me when I first read the book, not because it is the first novel which I was reading. I've been reading novels, and people are writing fictions, but particularly this novel, as far as this novel is concerned, this is not only an outpour of emotional outburst of the writer. Actually, sometimes when a writer writes from the from means only when a writer gets emotional and writes writes about the things from that perspective only, sometimes literature cannot appeal to the masses. But as far as this book is concerned, this is a psychological revelation of not only one character of that is Ajay or the protagonist, but it is a psychological revelation of the entire generation of that particular time. So in that way, the book is very authentically written. In between, yes, there are instances where we can read his protagonist's emotional side also. That is definitely part of the narrative, and it's a very authentically interwoven with the other subjects which are revealed. It's a multi-layered novel. It's not a linear narration of a young boy or of one generation. And interestingly, another thing which I have noticed while I was reading the novel is that it is not a documentary also. Sometimes when a writer wants to write about such subjects, that the subjects they become a kind of a documentary, a kind of a preaching which writer wants to suggest to the masses. But a complete balance is there as far as emotion, as far as psychological upheavals of the generation, as far as um, the politics which is interwoven, and it's an unbiased narrative. It's objectively written narrative. She's the writer. She's not taking anybody's sides, neither of the generation or of the politicians or of the organization which is portrayed as a kind of a trap to allure younger generation in the name of freedom. So that way, the novel is very much different. So I am happy to talk about the novel, and again I am happy to talk about the novel because I know Rupanjali ji, and I have been in constant dialogue with her, and I know from where she's means she is gathering her words and her narratives, and she has that, although she's an emotional person, but she has that capacity to go beyond the emotions, beyond because that is very important. Sometimes common people think that only emotions are required to write something or to create something or to decipher something, decode something. No, it's not necessary. It's not the only thing which is required on the part of the writer, and she has maintained that aspect when she is writing her literature. Not only this book today, although we are specifically focusing on this book of hers, but otherwise I have read many books by her, and she has maintained that objectivity in all the books, and for that I congratulate her. And I would like to read something which the kind of thoughts which came to my mind when I was reading the book. So the road alone, and the title itself is very you can say it's a means it is, you can say it's very attractive, means inside somewhere everyone feels that one is treading on a road which is alone. But when we read the novel, we get to know what kind of a road she's talking about, and it's not a literal road which is alone, but a metaphorical road on which the misled generation of that time started walking on. So The Road Alone by Rupanjali Baruah starts with the story of Dikso River. And this thing also was very and is very amazing that she started in the opening paragraph. She tries to engross the readers in her philosophical narration of the geographical area of that part about which she wants to write. And there is a river, and I think most of us are attracted towards water. I think water has a kind of energy to which we all are attracted, and we cannot live without water. That is another not only a symbol for life, but that life itself. So this is a Rixo river whose ebb and flow also carries along with it the story of the people of Assam as they live and perish, and by flowing with it or against it. So this thing she has portrayed very beautifully, that when you flow with the river, when you flow with the life, with the natural flow of life, you remain. It's not about one person, it's not about the life of one individual, but it is about life. It remains, it persists, it remains there. But when someone acquires the role of a doer, that when you want to go against the tide intentionally, without any reason, for the sake of showing people that you want to search something, by going against the nature of life, then how it perishes. And nothing is more beautiful than the story of the people who inhabit the banks of a river. As the writer puts it significantly, I quote from the book, it then collects all the mysteries of words uttered in vain or in faith, in whispers or in loud rattling voices, either from the right or the left, it doesn't matter. These will very soon become memories of this river. Means it's a beautiful line which I found in the opening paragraph of the novel. And every drop of the river gives us a sense of belonging, the absence of which leaves people indifferent and directionless. As the novel unfolds, we see how when a generation goes away from the river, how they become directionless. The novel tells the story of Ajay, who is in search of an elusive freedom, and is an accurate portrait of misplaced generation. I would call it misplaced generation, who without giving a second thought to what they are doing or what they are searching, and whether that was an authentic search, or they are falling to the trap of someone else's choices, that matters a lot. And who was led astray by its leaders. The narrative follows Ajay's trials and tribulations as he joins a band outfit which claims to fight for his people. Ajay falls in love with a young girl. Here, the novel becomes emotional aspect of Ajay is also revealed, unfolded, and but has to forego his love as he ventures into the unknown wild. That is an unknown wild. That is not a known. Means there is no harm in exploring something unknown, but it was a kind of a trap towards which he was treading. So he reaches a camp in search of freedom. He was allured in the name of freedom. And sometimes it's very interesting to know that sometimes one can sell freedom also. Means one can allure a generation or an individual in the name of freedom also. So he was not means we can say his thought process is not mature enough that he could differentiate between that it was only the greed towards which he was heading, or actually he was heading towards the freedom which was committed to him. And life in the camp and one by the river are not the same. And as a joy goes away from the river, a kind of fear engulfs him. And here, I would say that at this point of time in the fiction, she integrates psychological frameworks of people that fear and freedom, they can't go together. And once he is fearful about his actions, he can't be free. And the camp destroys his dreams, and more like him lie trapped in the numerous camps on the Indo-Bhutan border. He ultimately realizes, I quote from the book, there is no such thing as a victory. Only a thin flag staggers with the wind hanging from a tall bamboo pole. This is an amazing comment or revelation or exploration of the term victory. Victory for whom? So then when we go further, we see a loss of direction and a change of identity go hand in hand, and the consequences follow. Every action which we take and every choice which we make has a consequences. We have to bear the consequences whether we want it or not. Whatever action we take, consequences follow. So Ajoy is not an individual, rather he represents the entire misled youth of a generation. They were promised freedom, but in turn, they were caged. They were caged. And in the end, all Ajoy is left with are empty ideals and an aching heart. Empty ideals and aching heart. And every time he flashes back and he remembers his mother, his sister, his father, and but now there is no U-turn for him. The road alone is a remarkable saga of Assam's youth who are misled in their emotional quest for freedom. They that generation thought that it is their quest, but it was not their quest which came from within. It was imposed on them from outside, and a true eye opener for those who tread a wrong path and never come back. And that actually the tragedy happens when you reach somewhere and there is no coming back. I think it happens many a time in life that we can't come back, but there are instances when your entire life is ruined, and when there is no coming back, then and also in the end we know that his memory is lost. So that is another thing which is very significantly shown in the novel, that he when he leaves the river, he leaves his house, he leaves his culture, he leaves his tradition. So there is nothing left with him in his journey to find freedom. And another thing which is woven very authentically in the fiction is the concept of other. The concept of other is part of the narrative. And if you are always conscious about yourself, and you create a huge gap between you yourself and the other, you cannot make authentic choices. So that happens with this protagonist Ajay, and the author has incorporated many things into the matrix of narrative. Myth of freedom, actually this is a myth of freedom, this is not a freedom actually. Power of politics, helplessness of poverty, and many more. and the road remained alone as he became slave to the dictates of others and submit to the greed. He actually his going away from the river that he was allured towards the greed of freedom itself. And the choice he made is not authentic. He is not able to answer his inner self. I quote from the novel itself. What is the reason that he, Ajoy, is here? Who is his enemy? Who is his enemy? He himself becomes his enemy. Not anyone else is his enemy, but he himself becomes his enemy in the journey of life by making wrong choices, uh, uh, means going away in the name of freedom. He has no answers then, and he is left with no answers. He is in the trap of unfreedom. He is in the trap of unfreedom. Am I audible? Am I audible? Yeah, okay. He is in the trap of unfreedom. A beautiful word used by the writer, that is unfreedom. We don't read this word very often when we read texts. But here the word is very appropriately used, that is unfreedom. And dictionary meaning of unfreedom is, although all of us know, but I would like to read: if none of us is prepared to die for freedom, then all of us will die in unfreedom. But that was a kind of a trap. That was a kind of a trap that he was trapped in the name of unfreedom to search freedom. And unfreedom is one word he cherishes most. The question here is, through freedom from whom? Freedom from whom? He was going away from his inner self, and that is not a freedom at all. And one cannot find oneself amidst violence. Even if it was an authentic search, his search he just tried to find freedom in violence, which is impossible kind of a thing. There is no such thing as victory. Again, I would like to repeat that dialogue, that statement which is quoted in the novel, that it's only a thin flag staggers with the wind hanging from a tall bamboo pole. It is frightening. It is frightening. And and another thing which is part of the narrative is the role of memory. Role of memory. It was the river, the culture, the traditions, his household, his friends, his girlfriend, all were part of his memory. But by the novel ends, he everything is lost. So his memory, he cannot remember the things about his past. And his loss of memory denotes loss of identity, because he has dissociated himself from the culture itself, and he has dissociated himself from the authentic self, and denotes loss of identity, and he loses his hold on authentic self, and the road remains alone for him. The road remains alone for him, not for him, but for the entire generation who was misled and who was trapped in the name of freedom. And this is all what I have to say about this book. And really, again, I want to congratulate Rupanjali ji that without taking sides, she could create this kind of narrative. Otherwise, it is a human nature to take sides. We are, I think it's very easy to be biased, and it is very difficult to remain objective. It is very difficult to remain to unfold the psychological patterns of the people about whom the writer is writing, and she is not putting her psychological patterns into the fiction, but she is portraying the psychological patterns which about the characters who are portrayed in the novel. And and this is all what I have to say. But if I am allowed, can I ask 4 or 5 questions to the author, if it is permitted, if I can, so that we can know more about the writing, and more about the details which what she had in mind when she was writing this novel, if I am permitted. So, Rupanjali ji, I want to ask 4 or 5 questions to you. If you are willing to answer, then please. So actually, when I was reading this novel, a question actually, what usually a writer avoids, although nowadays this has become a pattern, but still most of the writers, they avoid writing about the journey of people which is integrated with the politics of the means era, you can say. It's not about one side or the other, but the way she has written. But what motivated you to take up this storyline for your novel, The Road Alone?
In fact, as I said earlier, this book didn't happen very suddenly. It took me some time because these events had taken place in the 80s, and I was witness to that. And we had lost one academic year because of the agitation, the mass agitation that was taking over Assam. And at that time, it upset me terribly. But over the years, I think, certain incidents, we tend to see them very objectively. And also, I wanted to pick up one particular character so that he could be my voice. And also that he represents the collective, feeling of the people of Assam. That is what I wanted. So that is how I think the book happened over the years. And now I'm glad that it has come on print and people are reading. And I must say, Miniji, you are absolutely stunning and amazing the way you have interpreted and understood. And there are certain, interpretations which I myself hadn't thought of. And then you pointed them out so well. And in fact, I had to weave this narrative, but keeping the reality in my mind. But at the same time, it is a piece of fiction. It's like a contemporary fiction. So writing fiction about reality is itself a very difficult task, because I had to be on the borderline, because I could not overstep, because as you said, I did not take any side with any organization or any thought process, radicalism. But I saw only completely, another thing that I would like to say, that whenever I write about a character, I try to get under the skin of the person.
Yes.
This is something I do. And
And
so
that is very important.
very important for me, because if I want to feel what trauma or whatever trepidations Ajay had felt, I had to become him. And so I think that is why I think my interpretation were as if I'm moving with him. When he leaves his home, if you remember, in the truck with all those people who wanted to take him away, there was a stream of ants, and he was looking at the ants and he was trying to crush them, but he didn't have the will to do that. So that itself defines him, that there is a basic weakness in him. Though he follows his friends and he's inspired for, freedom, but he doesn't realize that what he's getting into. And this is the problem with most of our generation of youths. They are, compelled or inspired by some ideology, and suddenly they realize that halfway, no, this is not my journey, I have to go back. But for Ajay, it was very pathetic, not only for him, for the other inmates also. So this is why I guess I was very, very much motivated that I must, as an Assamese, a person from Assam, I think I owe this book to the people of Assam, because unless they read about that history, because this is a slice of history, this is absolutely true. And this had happened to many of our youths, and the way they were leading a wayward life, and it could be anywhere, that the camp signifies the trapping of our life. And if you see it, that, that slowly the degeneration happens to Ajay. Why does it happen to him? Because he had left behind, as you mentioned very well, that he had left behind his culture, his tradition, his family. But there is one person whom he remembers, even though he suffers from that amnesia. He remembers the first love of his life, Maluti. And so he cannot forget her, but he doesn't know who she is, but he keeps on uttering. So that way, I think, for us not to make the mistake, I was mostly, inspired to write this book to show a path to my, to our youths, that please don't take the road alone anymore. It's very pathetic, and you better raise a family, or do what others do. But at least, I remember Robert Frost, The Road Not Taken. Again,
Yes.
question comes
Yes.
to me. Question comes to me: is it wrong to take the road not taken? Again, unless you explore the unexplored, how will you know what are your motivations in life? So even then, I think this book grips a guy who wants to break away, and then look at the destiny. I think I remember Thomas Hardy's Tess of the Urberville. Yes, I read his test, and I had seen his film also while we were in the university, and I saw that Tess had loved a man, but she had been misused by a man who had same thing happens to his girl Maluti. If you read that page, when she leaves behind the man she had was forced to marry for money, and then she is bearing a child, and then she decides that she has to be with Ajay. So she runs away from home, and what happens to her? By the time she reaches the camp, Ajay has vanished. That reminded me of Tess, that how Tess all the time struggling against her fate. She's though we can say that this is very pessimistic, but this is the truth of life. We seek something, but we find something else. So this is, I guess, I think the people of Assam will read more, and the rest of the people in India or elsewhere will read it and understand our psychology and our, sympathies, and what are the troubles that we have passed. This book documents that, not a documentary, of course, as you said, but it narrates through fiction what are the troubles that our people of Assam faces. And also with the river, as you said, the river is always a witness to us. You cannot do wrong. If you do something wrong, the river will punish you. That is our faith. We speak our lullabies to the river. We float our ashes in the river, and then and we believe that the river has memory. So that is why the river is very, very integral to my. So this is the first time I think I have the opportunity to write about our river, Brahmaputra, Dikho, Dhansiri. These are very lovable places for us. Very adorable places. So we grew up. And then I remember, every time I pick up a bottle of water, I spray it on myself. It's like a blessing. So this is the way we have grown up. I wish that people who have never seen a river, they will not understand. I remember there was this story by one writer, and it's called Ifa River, and it was about young boys. They are in the Sahara, and they're trying to create a river. Imaginary river, and trying to float some paper boats, but they have never touched the river. How pathetic it can be. Whereas we have plenty, we are flooded. And the flood, I must tell you, the flood cleanses our sins. We never curse the flood, because the flood is welcome to us. Though it creates a lot of havoc for the people who are living on the side, but it passes. But we wait for the flood and the rain. Assam is full of that, So I think it runs in our veins, it runs. That is why I think I had to, as you asked me, what motivated me? The whole pulse of Assam runs in my veins. So how can I avoid it? I have to write about its people. And I feel so sorry that these boys are gone. These boys are gone. They will never come back. And but at least, hopefully, generation will not
Yes.
forget.
Okay.
That is my lesson, my message. Is the reason I wrote this. That nobody should take this step. Enough is enough.
And
Yeah.
I want to talk about your writing skills also, and you have employed in this novel. Uh, uh, there are any skills you employed, or this is your unique style of writing?
Yeah, in fact, if you notice, you mentioned that I started with the river and the background, that how the river shapes us. And at the same time, I follow a technique, particular technique, which long time back in the ancient days, Homer had applied it in the Iliad. I hope you know, it's called in medias res. In medias res, it's an Italian word, in the middle of action, in the middle of action. So I don't, as you said also, that I don't follow the linear movement. I don't believe in chronological development of a storyline. I somehow, life is not like that.
Yeah.
Can you say that what's going to happen next moment? No, but there is chronological in our birth and life after. But while we are alive, we have no control over the passing of time. Passing, as you said, always passing. My first collection of poetry.
First collection.
I think that life is always passing, and that is why I guess in medias res, this term I really follow in most of my writing. In my earlier novella also, as you had read, I start from the center of a particular action, and then I go back and forth, back and forth. There are flashbacks, then again certain disappointments or moments of memories. Remember, Ajay remembers himself, flying towards his village, and he sees a light, in his hut, and then he sees the buffalo in his cowshed, and they have red marks, and the dream is so visible. How? Because he was going back through flashback. So that is why I wanted to imply that our memories never die with us. They are more alive than our reality. That is it. I love my memories. But people say that you should give up your past and then move forward and be in the present. I think those are philosophies of our yogis. But as but if you ask me, I love dwelling in the past. So I think that's why I made Ajay go back and forth, and this is the technique that I have applied. And flashbacks are very important for me. So that way. So that's it. I hope that answers.
And yes, beautiful answer. Yes. And another thing, that there is repeated use of paragraphs written in italics. Throughout the book, there are paragraphs which are written in italics. And is there a specific purpose for that, or what is the reason behind writing in that style?
Yeah, you can see that there is a break in the line of, in the frame of sentences. Sometimes straight Times Roman, and then suddenly there are italicized words, paragraphs. So I have put them, definitely specifically because why that I want to show a different frame of mind. That these people, whoever is speaking, supposing Ajay is thinking of his village or his girlfriend or his memories, and I feel that it's a kind of an internal dialogue. It's an internal dialogue. It doesn't happen. in reality. As I said, I balance reality and fantasy. So these are mostly moments in fantasy, that what's going to happen, has he already, almost there's a physicality in his fantasy. You can almost feel it, that, he's already there. He can smell the ground of his home, and his sister weaving, or maybe his mother working in the cowshed. So those smells, that he grew up with, he cannot abandon. So this is why I thought that let me have a different style where people will understand that these italics have some, and that is why I think you are also pointing out that reference.
Yes.
Very true.
Yes. And another thing which came to my mind is that Rivers of Assam features specifically all through your novel, which we have already discussed also. So, do they have any metaphorical suggestions in your storyline? I think we have already discussed that metaphorical aspect of the river also. That is river denotes life. But still, if more than that, if anything to say about that, because a river is life, that we all know.
In fact, if you remember, there was one incident where the river dried up, the Dikho dries up. And the drying up of the river is like the sapping of the energy of the people who are living by the side of the river. They have no motivation. They have no will to go to the farmland. They have no, the women, they were earlier singing songs, nursery songs for their children. They, even the old women, there were 6 old women referred to, and who said that other people wanted to move off. They said the river is drying up, so how can we have any cultivation or life? And so let's move on to another river which is full of water. And these women, they are so loyal that they said that we will stay by the river and until they turn into a small puddle in our hand. See their intensity, their love for the river. They said we are not going to abandon the river. This is like, supposing, someone's usefulness is over. Do we abandon that person? No. We allow that person to thrive again, to relieve or recover. So similarly, the river is so sacred to us, and because we are blessed by Ma Kamakha. So Brahmaputra is at the base of Ma Kamakha. So it is blessed by the goddess. So and it is the only male river. Brahmaputra is the, if you that is going into a bit of geography, that it is the only male river in India. It has no tributaries.
Okay.
It has no tributaries. It is the Putra of Brahma, Brahmaputra.
Okay.
Other rivers are Saraswati, Godavari, Jamuna, Ganga. All names are all female, but only this is the only river that is named after a male god. So Brahmaputra, and it is the river. If you ever come to see it, it is very quiet on the top, but very turbulent at the base. This is what most of us try to pretend, isn't it? Even if you like the character Ajay, I try to see a parallel between him and the river. He is going through a lot of turmoil, but externally he doesn't show it to anybody. He suffers inside. So this is a parallel that you can find.
Okay.
Yes.
Very interesting. Very interesting. And one last question. What would you expect your reader to carry home? Because every writer has some expectations from the readers also, that how should or how would they feel when they read their literature written by any writer, as a significant message from final denouement, if any. What would you expect from your readers to carry with them?
See, if you look at the history of fiction writing in Assam, in English, there are very few writers. Very few writers. You can just count the fingertips. But I feel that should not be a deterrent for us. That should not be a deterrent, because and I guess my writing a fiction in English will motivate other writers to take up the same genre. So, and that is one reason. And secondly, I feel that after reading this book, there should be a lesson learned. Nothing, no lesson can go unlearned. Like they have to learn
Yes.
it. And this reading itself will teach them, at least the young generation, not to make the same mistake of these misguided boys and girls. Even girls were mistreated, abused in the camp. So I think the girls should also watch out, that better save your skin, and whenever you decide to do something drastic in life. So these are messages, and also my writing this novel is not the end of it. I hope to. I have already written another second novel, so I hope that will also throw different light on different aspects of my life.
Yes, definitely. And one more thing, when I was reading your novel, on the book itself, I have written a small couplet when I was reading your novel. The thought came to me, I would like to share with all of you. That is in Hindi, but these are only 2 3 lines. Which came to me when I was reading your novel, and I wrote these lines on the novel itself. So कई रास्ते एक तरफा होते हैं, जाते हैं पर लौटते नहीं. Like Ajoy's life, कई रास्ते एक तरफा होते हैं, जाते हैं पर लौटते नहीं. ना तो उनके चौराहे होते हैं, ना तो यू टर्न. That's it. And thank you so much. It really it was a pleasure to read your novel, and it's thank you all of you for inviting me here, and it's a really a very warm platform which invite people all over the world, and share diverse things, not only about books, but I often watch your programs which are broadcasted on diverse subjects, so I congratulate all of you on that also.
Thank you so much, Ms. Rupanjai Baruah ji and Dr. Mini Gilji, for that very beautiful interaction on this episode of Pustakalok.
Next, I'd like to invite our next guest speaker, Ms. Paramita Sharma, who is a postgraduate in anthropology as well as a retired teacher. Ma'am has had several of her writings published in newspapers and magazines in India. We welcome next Ms. Paramita Sharma for her remarks today on this episode of Pustakalok.
Namaskar. We are grateful to Dr. Chaitanya ji, Director ICCR Durban, for giving us this platform to share our thoughts regarding English fiction writing by Assamese writers. I also thank all the speakers and our online viewers too. There are very few fiction writers in English from Assam, and Rupanjai Baruah is a well-known name in this region. I enjoy Rupanjali's work, whether it is her art, her poetry, or her stories. The book under discussion, The Road Alone, holds a special appeal for me, as I am also from this region, and I have also lived through the turbulent times mentioned in the book. This story is not just one story, but several stories woven into one, and as the reader progresses, the different layers are revealed in a very poetic manner. This is a story of dispossessed people, people who have had to leave their homeland for various reasons. Some have stayed behind and some have restlessly moved ahead. This is also a story of misled youth who have followed a piper's song and have left their homes and hearths in search of an elusive freedom. But do they really find it? Those who have left with Robin Hood dreams face the harsh reality later on. In this story, the main protagonist, Ajay, simple boy from a village, He is lured away by thoughts of freedom. He wishes to be free of his mother's constant supervision of everything he does. But this temporary freedom leads to a great change in his life. He is taken to a camp deep in the jungle. And what was a very romantic thought in his mind soon becomes a bad dream he can never wake up from. It is not just Ajay, but there are others also whose stories are intertwined along with his story. And in a dreamlike and realistic type of life that they lived in the camp, they have come to learn that what they had thought would be their freedom was only a pipe dream, nothing else. It is a total power and oppression that they thought they were fighting against. They were obliged to obey those in the camp itself. The slightest mistake would incur heavy punishment. And in one instance, Ajay is thrown into a pit just because he complained about the quality of the food. He has to spend the night in a very terrified condition. When he comes back, his rebellious streak is still there in him. And not only him, there are others in the camp who are also longing for a way to escape. They have found that this is not what they had come for. A river also runs through the book. There are several references to rivers and water in the book. Rivers symbolize the ups and downs of life. Sometimes they nurture, sometimes they kill. In this book, Rupanjali has tried to bring out a period during our lives when everything had turned upside down. There were thoughts of freedom, but freedom from what? No one was sure. The seeds of dissent were planted in their minds, and they grew, they took root and grew into something terrible. This neither gave them the freedom they had looked for, nor did they find any direction. In the end, each one has to deal with the mistakes they have made in their life. Some could live through it, some could not. Some fell prey to various diseases that are very common in the deep jungles and those kind of places in our region. As we all know, Assam is in a tropical rainforest area, and various illnesses, various malaises happen from time to time. And those in the camp had to face that too. And Ajay, for a while, is given duties in the camp hospital, where he learns how to take care of people, and he thinks he has found a purpose in his life. But he's always trying to escape. And the CNC, who's the top boss in the camp, a very cruel man, he does not spare anyone. And in the end, he tries to desert in the sense that he wants to leave all this behind and go abroad, find a place where he'll not be caught or brought back. And for this, he has already embezzled a lot of money from traders, from others, by coercion, by scaring them, by killing them, and trying to extort. In the end, he meets his doom, and then the money that he had collected over all these years goes back again where it should have gone, back to the people. In the end, the protagonist Ajay finds some kind of solace, and the CNC is killed, and his money goes back to the poor in the form of hospitals, orphanages, and other places to bring some kind of a repayment for all the deeds he had done, for all the crimes he had committed, for bringing so much sorrow to people. The money that he had extorted goes back again to the people. This is a this was a time through which we lived, where public hysteria was so common. A slightest call would bring everyone leaving everything they had done, they were doing, and they would rush onto the streets, they would gather in rallies, they would think that they are going to do something great, that they are going to change the world. But in the end, what did they change? Nothing. And their lives went back to where they were. So this is like a circle in which those who are setting out do not find any direction but have to come back where they started. And those who were there, who stayed behind, who were left, are still where they are. They have stayed behind, they have been left. Now, the people who had dispossessed these people, now they are the uh, people who have now inherited those lands. They have come and they have settled. And the people's plight is still the same. Those who had left had to come back, and many of them could not come back because they died, and their families are still waiting for them, their mothers are still waiting for them, and so many have become traceless. There is no news whether they're dead or alive, there is no closure. So this is the main theme of the story, The Road Alone, and I've enjoyed reading it, and I hope others will also enjoy reading it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Parmita Sharma, for that insight on this book. We definitely did enjoy your remarks and did get a greater insight on Rupanjali ji's book.
With that, we've come to the conclusion of episode 11 of Pustakalok, Light of a Book, on the book The Road Alone by Ms. Rupanjai Baruah from India. I would like to now call upon Mr. Sipiwe M. Chunu from the Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center at the Consulate General of India in Durban to render this evening's a vote of thanks.
Namaskar, greetings to all of you. On behalf of Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center at the Consulate General of India in Durban, I am honored today to deliver a vote of thanks on today's 11th episode of the program, Pustakalok, meaning Light of the Book. Today's discussion was about the book, The Road Alone, authored by Rupanjai Baruah. This is a wonderful book that she authored, and it is very interesting. And also, thank you, ma'am, for this wonderful book. Allow me to thank the following online guests. Let me start with the author herself, Rupanjai Baruah. Thank you, ma'am, for introductory remarks about your book. Secondly, allow me to thank Dr. Minnie Gill, Assistant Professor at Sri Aurobindo College, University of Delhi, for the wonderful remarks that she gave about the book. Lastly, I'd like to thank Ms. Paramita Sharma for the wonderful remarks that she gave this evening. To all of them, our online guests, Rupanjali G, Mini G, and Paramita G, Dhanyavad for taking part on today's program. To Dr. Chaitanya Prakash Yogi, Director of Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center at the Consulate General of India in Durban, Srishti Harinarayan, Sri Piyush Kandelwal, thank you very much for taking part on today's program. To all our online participants, we'd like to say thank you very much for taking part on today's program. You are kindly advised to visit our Facebook page, ICCR Durban, for all cultural activities organized by Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center in Durban. Once again, to our online guests, thank you, and to all of you, have a wonderful evening. Namaskar.